Welcome everyone, this is Andre's Restart, and today we're talking about Pokemon. I have a Zelda video and a Metroid video that I've been working on. They're going to take a little longer, so today it's going to be more of a little quicker video. You'll just see some gameplay in the background while I talk about this, but this is something that's interesting. And that's that apparently we have leaks for the Pokemon games to be coming out next year. Now, I've discussed this before, how it might be related to potentially a Legends Kyurem, or maybe remakes for Black and White, and it might be both. So that's what we're talking about today. But before we go forward, let me point out that we are aiming to reach 50,000 subscribers by the end of the year. So if you do enjoy my content, please subscribe and hit the notification bell, and enjoy the ride as we talk about Nintendo every day. So basically, the Riddler is at it again. If you're unfamiliar with the Riddler, this is someone on Twitter who puts out riddles of different Pokemon leaks. They usually don't outright say what's going on, but they'll put out a lot of clues and hints before the news actually comes out, and pretty much every time, they're correct. Like, we're talking about dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens of hints over the years where they have proven to be true. So everyone pretty much takes the Riddler seriously if they know about their track history, as do I. However, the Riddler does things in riddles, is cryptic, oftentimes does it in Chinese, and it's not always clear what they are alluding to. But they put out some images that I've roughly translated that seem to be suggesting something, and based on what I'm seeing from others who've tried to translate it as well, I think I'm on the right track. So this image was posted, and it looks to be a chain of communication on a thread. And the first part reads, "Original taste and contradiction on Black and White." Original taste and contradiction, that seems kind of hard to make out, but I think what it's getting at here is something about keeping true to the original, like a remake, and then the contradiction is another way of saying paradox, and there's been a lot of speculation that there might be a game around this paradox concept we've seen in Scarlet and Violet, and potentially a whole game, Paradox Unova. And then Black and White, well, that would be the names of Pokemon Black and White Generation 5. The next part is a question, what are both? And this next little translation I have here, that's just one of them. It doesn't mean that both of them are like this. So again, a lot of room for interpretation. This is a very loose translation of what's being said on a Chinese message board that the Riddler is sharing. And when asked in the replies, the Riddler says it's true. But the Riddler is a bit of a troll, so do take what this interpretation is as a grain of salt. But I think what's being hinted at here, if it's not meant to be kind of like a bait and switch, is maybe something similar to what happened when we got Legends Arceus. So when we got Pokemon Legends Arceus, it wasn't just Pokemon Legends Arceus. A couple months beforehand, we also got Pokemon Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl. So if there's more than one thing going on here, maybe what's being alluded to is that there will be a very conservative remake that stays true to the original material. It doesn't stray too far off. Very much like Pokemon Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl. But also, there will be another game that will be somewhat like Legends Arceus. Here we're seeing contradictions or paradox. Maybe it has a different name. Maybe it's based off the concept of that and it still keeps the Legends subtitle, but it's a game in that vein. Regardless of what the name actually is, it's meant to be something that's kind of like a new adventure and not just a remake, and they're doing both around the same time, just like they did with Brilliant Diamond Shining Pearl and Legends Arceus. Part of me is skeptical of this because I just find it hard to believe that we'd be getting another series of remakes so soon after Generation 4. We would just be talking about a 3-year gap here. But the one thing that is clear is that the Riddler has been alluding to something Generation 5 related very heavily. It's not just a subtle tease here or there, it's rampant, and it's been going on like this for some time. So I do think there is something major related to Generation 5 happening in the not-so-distant future. And I think it most likely is related to the next mainline release from Game Freak and Pokemon Company. But I also think this situation becomes just a bit more complicated when we account for the likelihood of Nintendo Switch 2 coming out sometime next year. My perspective on the matter until recently has been that since traditionally, with every prior generation we've seen the mainline Pokemon releases all on handhelds, when Nintendo releases the next generation of their handheld line, the mainline Pokemon games are still made for the prior gen, and they don't start to put out the next generation of Pokemon until a couple years once they've built up a large install base. And I've been thinking that we'll probably get the next mainline Pokemon game this next November, not this year, I'm talking about for 2024. And by that point, Switch 2 will be out, but I would think the system would be out before then, in part to give Pokemon the spotlight for November as they typically take, but also so maybe like a 3D Mario could come out in October, as we've also seen a few times before, a major Mario game coming out in October. And because the system would be backwards compatible, this Pokemon game would still be playable on the new system, so if you get the new system and still want to enjoy Pokemon, you can. But if we're talking about getting another remake like Brilliant Diamond Shining Pearl, but for Generation 5, and then another game that's kind of its own thing, maybe something in the vein of Legends Arceus, even if it doesn't have the Legends naming, then perhaps they might handle things just a bit differently. One option is that maybe one of these games gets a graphics patch, so say for example, this Paradox Unova or Legends Kyurem or whatever it's called, that gets a graphics patch for Switch 2 and it still comes out for both systems. Or another possibility that I would say is unlikely, it's an exclusive. However, if this is the direction they're going in, this Legends Paradox game wouldn't come out in 2024, it would come out early 2025, assuming they follow the same pattern they did with Brilliant Diamond Shining Pearl and Legends Arceus. BDSP came out November 2021, Legends Arceus came out January 2022. And it may be the case that they want to pivot this other Pokemon game as a big sort of launch window game for Switch 2. I don't think that's out of the question. No matter how they handle it though, I personally think it's very likely that the Switch 2 will be backwards compatible, in small part so they can take advantage of the Pokemon sales, because it would be kind of weird for a Switch 2 to come out and for people to not be able to play the Pokemon games. Before the Switch, every time there was a new Pokemon game, you could play them on the new system even if they weren't made for that system. So I think that's happening, and I think something Generation 5 related is absolutely coming out sometime next year. And maybe it is a remake of Black and White 1 and also a Legends or Paradox kind of game as well based off Kyurem. That would be pretty cool. But what do you think? Let me know in the comments below. This is Andres Restart. Thank you so much for listening and watching, and I'll see you all really soon. Take care.